And welcome aboard. Charles Moscowitz here. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Great to be back. Michael D. Shaw is with me, as is our habit, usually on Thursday, but today we're doing it Monday. Michael, thanks for joining me as always.
Hey, it's always a pleasure. What better way to spend Labor Day
Indeed.
than being on the show? Really? Yeah.
Well, Labor Day is usually something that's associated with the left, but it's actually a great day to honor people who work for a living.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I
there's still some of them left too.
There is, and it's becoming a growing thing, if you know what I mean. You have up a tremendous article
Oh, thank
from,
you so much.
from Bud Light to Cracker Barrel. But before we go there,
Yeah.
I just want to touch, and we are going to get to it, but I want to touch a little bit on, just briefly, on a theme that I wanted to talk about, and that is the developments at the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, where RFK Jr., who in my opinion is a folk hero, and he transcends old designations of left and right. He's actually a man of the left, at least until recently, and still is. But he is getting into an issue that transcends those categories in terms of bringing the country back to health as individuals and as a nation, and challenging some of these unhealthy trends that have been put forth by the establishment, the big pharma, more recently, all of these additives to our food. If you go to a grocery store, everything seems to have seed oil in it. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everything has corn oil in it, which is why we're all getting fat. Everything has polyunsaturated fats, which are toxic. It goes back and reminds you to the Birch Society first brought this up when they talked about putting fluoride in the water system and how that was weakening not only our bone structure, but our minds. And I think they were absolutely right about that. And it actually goes back, I just did a little research to this, to the Flexner report. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
1910, the Carnegie Institute of Teaching published the Flexner report. Abraham Flexner, some shoe salesman, who knows who the hell he was.
Yeah.
But he developed this report, which basically claimed, and if you read it, I haven't read the whole thing, but I'm studying it now, to demonize conventional, traditional medicines that had been around for centuries, if not millennia. Things like vitamins, minerals, homeopathy, and other methodologies, and to replace it with oil-based elementary drugs that would eventually be marketed by the Rockefeller Foundation, and that it caused for licensing of doctors. It set up federal agency for approval for everything, which is both good and bad.
Yeah.
But in the broad sense, it transformed our medical establishment into one based on a particular monopolistic approach to medicine, which is not invalid, but it's not the only thing. I mean, there are many approaches to health, and they wanted to sort of control how we are to approach our health. And it was also the same year that the Cancer Society was established, and it was the year that Wilson came into office, and it was a year that everything in this country transformed, and we moved into a kind of a quasi-socialistic, fascistic system where you would have top-down control. Anyway, to bring things up to the present, RFK is challenging this, and he has done so for decades as a lawyer operating on the left, which always has resonated with me anyway, and most people on the right, in that, he's looking at these big pharma solutions and these big agri solutions or methodologies and noticing that they're not healthy. And he's doing a deep dive as HHS into whether or not there are connections between, for example, certain vaccines, particularly given at infancy, and the development of autism, which is something that has been scorned. But yet he's saying, let's look at the science. And they're finding that now they're releasing reports that show that there is a connection and that there has been a what can only be described as an epidemic of autism in America, which is very debilitating and is unnecessary.
Well, one of the problems with allopathic medicine is that it had great success, and therefore it became, quote, the answer. And as I've said a few times, you look at the Salk vaccine and the Sabin vaccine, success against polio, and then suddenly, apparently, this meant that every vaccine that was ever given, and certainly vaccines given at birth, like the Hep B vaccine, just become part of this litany of, what is it, over 200 of these that are given in early life. And it just became an article of faith. Unfortunately, people started, the autism is one thing, but during COVID, a lot of people started questioning the conventional wisdom.
Yeah, and a lot of people had always
good reason.
questioned it. But that particular vaccine, now there were reports coming out of proving things that we've been talking about for years. And some of America's most respected medical experts, like Dr. Robert Malone and Dr. Peter McCullough and Dr. Gold and Dr. Reish from Yale have been talking about, which is that it's not such a wonderful idea to give those vaccines to children and to pregnant women, or as one of the CDC guys who was just fired said, pregnant people. All right. But the point is that now these reports are coming out, which show there is a connection not only to myocarditis and young men getting the vaccine, but that the CDC covered it up. Now, can you imagine? We talked about this. I mean, this isn't new, but it's becoming new to the American people. And the reaction has been that you have these people, and they're all huffy, they're leaving, and they're outraged, and this is anti-science. And you have this disgusting spectacle, it's kind of a sidebar, of Robert Kennedy's family, his brothers, his sisters, condemning him for this. And there's this guy who I think wrote his autobiography years ago, now doing a disgraceful. I mean, I saw this on a reel where he's spilling the dirt on Kennedy. I mean, this is really low. It's kind of, these people have no shame, and it's completely irrational. They're angry at him because he's doing it with Trump. He could have done it. By the way, Barack Obama wanted to bring RFK into the government, and he was informed by his controllers over at Big Pharma not to, so he listened to them.
Right,
Trump
right,
didn't,
right. There's a lot that's going on here. Okay, one is I get so tired of this. Well, people are being unscientific. All right.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Let me tell you something. There's almost no science occurring right now. It's all based on how you can get a grant and how you can keep your job. If the CDC wants to argue that they have done any science in the last 10 years, I'd like to see what it is. All right. And why is it, and I've asked this before, that all these medical agencies are run by academics that have never been real doctors?
Right, like Fauci.
Well, Fauci's a classic example, but so is your friend, what's her name?
Rochelle. Yeah, Rochelle. Exactly.
What is she doing now, by the way?
No, that's a whole different question. I don't even want to go anywhere near it. But
okay.
But what a character! I mean, she was a graduate not of a medical school, but of a medical administration to administer medicine. I mean, Harvard has a whole department now that talks about medical administration. It's not actually hands-on medicine. Right. I think Fauci is a product of that also.
Well, Fauci is a legit internal medicine doctor, but he very cynically made the decision out of residency that was never going to be a real doctor. He was going to go immediately into government service.
Right.
And as can only happen, I think, in the government, although we'll see with Cracker Barrel, nothing succeeds like failure. All right. He completely botched the AIDS thing. No one even disputes that now. And
And all the lies around that. I mean, and it's still such a hot potato politically to criticize the mask or to criticize.
it's a hot potato because I think it comes down to atheist society. Okay, their god is science. All right, and as people
Well,
may remember,
I actually wouldn't mind it if they did worship a little bit of real science, not
yeah,
this.
real science.
There's these lies. I mean, this was like, I mean, the CDC. Those people are like complaining about being fired. They should be in prison, all of them. They covered up evidence that put young men giving heart disease and knew about it. Those are crimes. I mean, I can imagine how I'd feel if it was my son, or pregnant women. I mean, having miscarriages and, losing the baby. I mean, and not to mention other maladies. I mean, this whole thing it's a scandal that I think is starting to come out finally, but we've been talking about it for
Well,
years.
it's always been out.
It's coming out a little bit of a broader way, and they're squirming and screaming and like it's like a bunch of cockroaches at the bottom of a barrel. I mean, this is really very dark stuff that
It
is
is.
coming
And
out of
here's
it.
the depressing part that a lot of people don't realize. It would be one thing if they were all bought off by pharma and they're just doing it for that reason. But I suspect there's another element that really people don't want to talk about. All right. They think because they're doing the science, and by definition, they are the science, that it must be right. So now it's a combination of, no, you know what? It didn't work. You were wrong. You failed. And they just can't wrap their arms around that. They just
Well, they're doubling down. I mean, they're tightening the masks. I'm waiting for them to try. I mean, Fauci, I remember during the height of the pandemic, he recommended people wear 2 masks, 3 masks.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for them to pull out the second mask any minute. I see people out here doing this. It's unbelievable.
I think what's going to happen with Fauci is the same thing that is happening with Mueller. Okay.
Yeah.
He gets the old sick, and so what are you going to do? Kick someone when they're down? Yeah. Well, yeah. It wouldn't bother me. But,
well, now Mueller's too sick to come to Congress, they say.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's probably some truth to that because.
Well, there is truth to that, but the fact is, he was already showing those symptoms back during the time.
Yeah. Well, it gets into the same question with Biden. Who was in charge of that rotten committee? I mean, Mueller was obviously just a figurehead. He was not playing with a full deck. And it was probably those 2 skunk lawyers that we've talked about, Elias and the knucklehead, the other one. I forget his name now. We're actually in there calling the shots. These are really evil, vicious people. And they bring up this guy, kind of very Yankee type, with the talks like this, sounds like he's a mouthful of marbles. John Kerry comes to mind. Oh, well, it's old Massachusetts. This is the Saltonstalls. And back in the day when you had these with a horsey face, And then they just put them up there. They prop them up. It's like in Psycho, the way he propped up the mother in the attic.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they're there running the show in a way that, getting everything done, behind the scenes. And, I don't know what's going to happen with that, but it does seem like the truth is finally coming out bigger regarding the pandemic and the vaccine. That the rats are running wild. There's going to probably be some people who are going to start to blow a whistle. I don't know. So far, they're very loyal. It's kind of like the whole lawfare thing. You don't have too many people.
Right. They're loyal because the whole thing's a cartel. All right. a lot of people forget the reason the CDC is in Atlanta is the original mission was to take care of all these various diseases that poor Southerners were getting, malnutrition, parasites, whatnot. They, for many years, have been a terrible agency that just got worse. And maybe I'm the only one who remembers when Julie Geberding was the head of the CDC.
Yeah.
There was that huge outbreak of bed bugs in New York.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the first thing she says is, this has nothing to do with immigration. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like the trans shooter.
Yeah.
Right. Who started to mow down Catholic children while they're saying mass. All of a sudden, this has to do with guns. Meanwhile, well, let me say two things about that, because you do cover this in your excellent article from Bud Light to Cracker Barrel. That firstly, in every single case, as far as I've read, going back to Columbine, going back before that, the big ones, the little ones, where there's been homicide, where there's been a crazy shooter of children, they are on, and I'm glad I'm not on YouTube, TikTok, I'd be banned. They are on psych drugs. They're on something, Prozac, whatever it is. And that if you read the labels of those psych drugs, they tell you right there that this drug could cause homicide or suicide. And that to give those drugs to young people, it's one thing if you're like in your 50s and you're dealing with some depression, fine. But we're talking here about undeveloped, immature, not physically or emotionally developed people, young people. It's crazy. I mean, they were handing them out. I talked about this with a very left-wing therapist off the record, who acknowledged that I was right about this, and who told me, we now know this in the psychology community, and we have cut back. We know that this is a problem, but they've obviously not cut back enough. I'm not saying it's never warranted, but it's a very dangerous controlled substance, and it obviously is linked to all of these killings. And that every time there's been one of these killings, they refuse to release the information about their mental condition, or who was supervising, or what drugs they were taking, or who was the therapist. All of that is not released, so we don't know. And that's, to me, suspicious.
Well, of course, suspicious. And then, you mentioned the trans thing, and I talk about your friend, Dr. John Money.
Oh, yeah.
And the infamous Reimer twins case.
Yeah, very, very troubling. Let's just recount that for a minute. He's one of the founders of the sexology movement. He along with Simone Kinsey and Simone de Beauvoir, the wife of.
Well, let me just interrupt. I mean, the reason that Money continued to get favorable publicity is he wasn't immediately identified as a total psycho like Kinsey.
Right.
So Money supposedly was the good guy, and dear Lord.
Oh man, yeah. He invented sex change for children, and he was the first one to advocate it. And in the case of the Reimer twins, and you point out in your article that they eventually committed suicide.
Yeah.
It's a very tragic case. One of them, the one that they were trying to transition, he tried to murder Money. He showed up at the office with a gun. I mean, do you know that?
I had heard about that. I didn't know whether it was an embellishment or what, but
no, he did. I mean, he didn't. Money had gotten a tip off, and he took off. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he was in an absolute rage over it, and for good reason.
For the viewers, without doing the entire case, Money was advocating in the case of a very unfortunate botched circumcision that this kid be transitioned into a girl. The kid never wanted to do it, and there was increasingly harsh quote, therapy applied to this kid to make the change. His parents finally recanted. He had actual corrective surgery that restored the penis properly, enough that he apparently was able to get married. But he never forgave, nor should he have forgiven money. And of course, the money goes on to have a distinguished career of 50 years at Johns Hopkins.
Right.
And this is the guy who's cited as being the father of this gender ideology,
Yes.
although supposedly he never used the term gender identity. But
Well, I mean, he and, as I said, Simone de Beauvoir, the wife of Jean-Paul Sartre, the author of The Second Sex,
yeah,
back in the early 1950s, they're the ones who came up with the sociological concept of gender. There was
yeah,
no such thing. They invented it. It's a complete fiction. There are sexes, male and female. Yes, there are very rare conditions where you have a hermaphrodite. And there's nothing wrong with that word. I know that has become unpopular, but where someone is born with elements of both um, genitals. But even in those cases, eventually, usually what happens is the parents observe the baby and they kind of figure out which they favor. And they then bring that child up as a boy or girl, depending.
right.
And that there might be surgeries later. And that's the humane thing to do, because everyone is either male or female. Even if you're a female with male elements or vice versa, you still have one that favors the other. You can't have both equally. That's not possible. Because if you could, then a person could impregnate themselves. It's not possible. You can't have both functioning testicles and functioning ovaries. You have either one or the other that favors. Again, in very rare conditions, there might be elements of both, but that's, it's inhumane to suggest that person is not either male or female.
Well, I mean,
Because
and here this guy was able to develop an entire academic career with this stuff. And well, of course, the other thing that a lot of people don't know is he wrote up this case using a pseudonym, saying that it was successful, when that was a complete lie.
Sure.
He's a total fraud. He should have been kicked out of academia, but since he was bringing in grant money,
Well, it's like the Nazi doctors. These people never pay a price.
yeah,
It's like von Verscher, the mentor for Mengele.
yeah,
He was after the war. He got a slap on the wrist. He went back to work at the University of Munster, where
yeah.
he spent the rest of his life. And this does tie in to the shooter in Minneapolis. And the reason it does is because this guy expressed regret before this event. He said that he made a big mistake by doing the transition to the extent that he did, and that he was brainwashed. He said, he used the word brainwashed. And this gets into the question of who did this brainwashing. First of all, his mother, who approved of the legal change of his name from Robert to Robin, she's left town. She's hired a lawyer. She's not cooperating. She's gone. The father, I don't know what the deal is with him, but the point is that at some point along the road here, what happened to him is the same thing that's happening to a lot of young people. They are identified in the class as someone who might not be either male or female enough. Somehow it goes on the radar that this person might have, sexual conflict. And they are told that they were born in the wrong body. And then the parents are told that they better go along with it or that child might commit suicide. And the usual line that's used is, would you rather have a live daughter or a dead son? In other words, it's a real blackmail. It's ugly.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so that
it's only because it's become monetized that this
it's
even
a lot
goes
of,
on.
yeah, monetized. Plus, it's the very core of leftist ideology, the idea that you can change human nature literally.
Yeah.
This is what I'm studying the French Revolution right now in my revolutionary class. That's what that was all about. We're going to change all of society by force and create this new consciousness, this new utopia. It's the ultimate dream of every leftist movement, except this gets down to the most basic and the most exciting for them, that we
Yeah.
can literally decide who we can, I had this classmate of mine at the college put, because we put little introductory notes about who we are, what we're doing. She said, I was assigned female at
Oh
birth.
boy.
And like, I
But
was very,
people get brainwashed so easily.
yeah, I mean, I was very polite about it. I'm like, who did this assignment? The doctor? Your parents? I mean, what kind of arrogance is that? Somebody assigns you? I mean, it's like this, it comes from this ideology that this mass murderer had embraced. And then the fact that he regretted it at the end, I mean, it was too late for him.
Yeah.
But, and I'm not in any way exonerating him, he's a monster. But the fact that he went through this, that's what should be investigated here. How did it happen? What is the timeline for when he was told that he was born in a wrong body? And what was the process?
Well,
How
the
was
stereotypical explanation always seems to come down to a single mother raising the kid, wanting to change the sex of the kid. I don't think there's any recorded case in history where the father wants to do this.
No, probably not. And usually they're divorced and he has no say in it.
Yeah.
And he's out of the picture. And I mean, that was the case like with Adam Lanza from the Sandy
Yeah.
Hook. The father was divorced. He was out of the picture. He was not allowed to have, I think they probably accused him of like domestic abuse. He was limited in his contact. The men have no rights in those cases. And that she was a crazy nut,
Yeah.
a mother. Whatever she did to tamper with him, it obviously was pretty bad. I mean, I don't know if she's even around anymore. I think he killed her also, and for good, I mean, maybe the only justified murder of all. He should have left it at that, frankly, not killed, 30 children at a school. But
Well, isn't it interesting that in these cases, they never seem to, they're always talking about, in any other type of crime, they're always talking about root causes. But in these mass shootings, they never talk about that. They just talk about the gun.
well, I mean, that's, of course, it's absurd. I mean, we should talk about the root causes. I mean, the gun, obviously, there were more guns available in the past than there are now, but you didn't have this happening.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember when you could buy a gun at the counter at Sears and Roebuck,
Yes.
right? You could walk in. I think you had to be the right age, but it wasn't a big deal. We had BB gun in the house. I mean, I remember my father screaming at us because we went in the backyard and we were like taking pot shots at pigeons. But the point is that people did this. So it wasn't like this big deal.
Well,
Now,
it's interesting that people don't like taking a historical perspective when it's so obvious. In fact, I got into a big argument with some guy, some nutrition organization, CSPI, I think it is, where they were blaming this obesity epidemic on the fact that you have sugared beverages.
right.
And I said, okay, I'm old enough to remember this. In the 1950s, when I was in elementary school, everybody had a bad diet. Everybody. Nobody had a good diet.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Okay.
We all had cans of, we basically had cans of Chef Boyardee.
Yeah.
We had a big drawer in my parents' kitchen with ho-hos and remember those chocolate dipped with a marshmallow. I mean, it was nothing. We all had that.
Yeah, everybody had a bad diet. But the thing that was in operation was A, kids actually got exercise.
Yes.
And B, they don't like talking about this. Fat kids were ostracized.
Right. You just didn't do
So
that.
you didn't want to be a fat kid. Well, now we have fat acceptance.
I mean, and by the way, the main spokeswoman for that, she passed away recently, had a heart
Yeah,
attack. I mean, this is
yeah,
a health crisis. It's not a
yeah.
matter of,
What a surprise.
these are health issues. Now, I don't know if, do you follow Andrew Huberman, his podcast at all? He's a health guy. He's very good. He's a professor at Stanford.
I
One of
probably
the,
did a couple of articles. I don't.
he's quite good. He's one of the top, and he's gotten in some trouble with the establishment, but he has one of the top podcasts. And he was on actually last week with Bill Maher, who actually, did a pretty, it was one of the more balanced conversations I heard him do. Also had on Christopher Rufo, who's a great reporter and who exposed the Claudine Gay scandal. But he had on Huberman, and he talked about some very simple things that we've forgotten about that would have improved our health. Like, for example, and I'm saying this as someone who just got over some sickness. If you go outside in the morning when the sun is coming up and you get maybe 15 or 20 minutes of direct sunlight and you look at the sun, you're going to improve your ability to sleep properly. You're going to get natural melatonin. You're going to get it raises from depression. It puts you in a better mood. It releases all kinds of natural elements in your body. It's a natural thing to do, and it's something that people used to do. He says now children, they have less sunlight than prisoners. They're like put into these big boxes. They don't get out. They no longer have recess, or they let them go out for 15, like 10 minutes. And that, he also mentioned a couple of other simple things that we have forgotten how to do. Certain breathing techniques to oxygenate yourself. You breathe in, and then you give a little extra, like breath, and you fill your system with oxygen. You get oxygen to your head. These things are free, which is, of course, why pharma doesn't talk about them.
Ah,
Right? I mean, it's sort of like good water quality. These things are not expensive to be well hydrated. We don't talk about these things. And it's like these other simple basic functions that we do not even discuss, that are so basic and so simple, but yet can improve your physical life and improve your health
well, I
and
think people have
longevity.
been brainwashed into thinking that the reason you get a headache is because the blood level of aspirin in your body isn't high enough, you know.
Well, I
And
mean, aspirin is not a natural substance. I think it's I
well,
mean,
white willow bark was, but when they added uh, a few extra molecules to make it acetylsalicylic acid,
yeah.
then it had less stomach upset. But I guess what I'm saying is that maybe the drug shouldn't be the initial answer to everything.
No, I mean, you talk about headaches. I mean, there are certain physical motions that you can do in the morning. We can learn from the Chinese about this. Certain ways. I'm watching some videos on this. The way to swing in the morning and go a couple of movements. And if you do that every day, you're going to release that kind of pain. I really mean it. I mean, these are basic things that we have forgotten about. Maybe it goes back to the Flexner report and the dependence on petroleum-based drugs. I mean, they put petroleum in everything. Petroleum jelly. What do you think that is? It's petroleum. You're putting oil on your face. It's the same stuff you put in your car. The point is that we have forgotten some of these basic things that have been basics of civilization for millennia, and that we are getting back to. And I think part of the awareness of that is the Kennedy movement. It was, is Make America Healthy Again, MAHA. And that's why they are flipping
Well,
out.
they're fighting it tooth and nail because one, a lot of them are true believers, if this is what you've believed for your entire life, that the answer is some sort of pharmaceutical compound for everything, and now we're saying, well, no, that probably isn't it. I mean, the classic example was, do you remember in the 50s and 60s, all these guys were getting ulcers, right? All these
Right. And
ulcers.
then antacids were the answer, right?
Yeah. Okay. So then the number one drug at the time was called Tagamet, which was used to treat ulcers. All right.
Okay.
Some guy, I forget his name, came up with the finding, well, no, ulcers are caused by a bacteria, Helicobacter pylori, and it's a bacterial infection. And the doctors did not want to accept that, even though the proof was incontrovertible. They had been brainwashed into, no, you take Tagamet. And Tagamet was still a big drug for about 10 years. It actually had to just sort of fade away, kind of like with the COVID vaccines, where a couple of years into it, 3% of the people were still getting them. So they voted with their feet, so to speak.
Right. But they're now screaming that people don't have enough access to the COVID vaccines, which, by the way, first of all, that's BS. You can get them. There's plenty if you want them.
Yeah.
The question is that they're no longer being mandated. But, you point out the Tagamet thing. I think that, there are natural remedies to ulcers and to acid reflux. It's called, apples. I'm serious.
Yeah, yeah.
And apple cider vinegar. The actual putting in of acid into your stomach actually reduces and neutralizes the effects of an acidic stomach. It's but of course, a drug company isn't going to make any money on an apple, right? Anybody can get it at the supermarket. I'm pointing out that there's a lot of money involved here, and we're talking like big money.
Yeah.
That is affiliated with this sort of Flexner Report monopoly, I guess I might call it.
Well, the tendency was that technology was going to solve all the problems, and indeed, after World War II ended, people were impressed by all the innovations that had come out, radar, for example, jet aircraft, whatnot. So naturally, I remember this vividly in the 1950s. A lot of women, well, I don't want to breastfeed anymore. We're going to use formula because that's a technological improvement.
It's actually better, yeah.
And I remember from personal experience, I had a cousin, a little girl, was always having colic, all these problems. And my late aunt, I guess, was caught up in this. You got to use formula,
right?
People just get, I think, allow themselves to be brainwashed.
You believe in the guy with the white smock. They're like the God. They've replaced God, and like it doesn't matter if it might be Dr. Kinsey. Who knows what's going on under that smock? We don't.
Or Dr. Mengele.
Or Dr. Yeah, exactly. Or Dr. Fauci or any of these other.
But when I wrote that article comparing Mengele and Fauci, Mengele actually had a very good career before the war.
Right.
He was fairly heroic when he was on the battlefield. And what did Fauci ever do? A series of horrible experiments. And does anybody remember AZT? I do.
Yeah, I think it caused more death among gay men than AIDS.
Yes, it did.
That's what I've heard.
Because it was a failed drug that was brought back. It's a
same thing with Ritalin. It was originally supposed to be a drug to deal with Alzheimer's disease, and then when it didn't work, we'll give it to the children.
Give it to the kids.
Yeah. It's repurposing, I think they call that. Anyways, look, I'm not suggesting that all of these things are always bad. I'm not against vaccines. Like, for example, I've read very carefully the memoirs and letters of President John Adams. I grew up in Quincy. I've always been interested in that family. I actually got permission to study in his library.
Really?
Yeah, through the Quincy Historical Society when I was a teenager. I just took a great interest in Adams. Great man.
Is there any of his family still surviving in that area?
Yes, yeah. In fact, I met one of them. I mean, they're around.
Yeah.
And it's just and he told me he actually worked at a radio station where I was, and I interviewed him, and he told me some hilarious stories about Adams. But and they were around, and you could tell that he was an Adams. He looked like Adams. He was just what was I going to say about John Adams? Oh, John Adams had, when he was a young man, he had the polio vaccine. Or was it the smallpox vaccine?
Smallpox.
And that
polio was a little
polio
late.
wasn't around yet, and it was a very painful process. I mean, they had to go in and be scratched by a glass, and they had to sit in a tent and go through this whole thing. But they did this, and it worked.
Yeah.
George Washington, one of the reasons what slowed down his advance during Valley Forge was he vaccinated all of his men with smallpox, because the enemy, the British, was sending smallpox people into the camp. A lot of them were slaves, and they were trying to spread smallpox. It's sort of the germ warfare of the day. And so he made sure that they were all vaccinated. Washington himself had smallpox, so he didn't need the vaccine. He had recovered from it during the French and Indian War. And that they did this because it worked. I'm not saying that all vaccines are bad. It did build an antibody toward smallpox to have the exposure of the virus in a controlled way. So it's not a matter of being anti-vaccine. I think it has.
I mean, how come no one pointed out the problem with the COVID vaccine was, of course, the RNA aspect of it. So you're going to be making your own spike protein. And somebody just assumed, well, it'll stop making it after X amount of time. Now, of course, they're finding that most of those vaccinated people still have spike protein circulating around, billions of these molecules circulating around.
And that they infiltrated into the DNA?
Yeah.
That's very bad.
So it was the whole notion that this unproven technology, there were two stupid things, evil things. One, why not just use the old school method of giving someone a dead or weakened virus as a vaccine? That was the classic method. Well, all right.
Exactly.
The reason they didn't do that is they already knew it wouldn't work, because coronaviruses mutate too readily.
Sure.
That's why you don't have a vaccine against the common cold, which is a coronavirus.
Well, you have herd immunity, right? I mean, after a while, that's a standard medical idea, right?
Of course.
And by the way, I mean, RFK, this is again what I've heard, and I'm not verifying it. I heard this on a podcast. Do you ever listen to Seth Holhouse, Man in America? Good guy, good podcast.
Yeah.
I forget who his guest was, but he had a medical expert on who made the claim that recently RFK has pulled all funding from the mRNA research. We were talking like huge money, hundreds of billions of dollars.
It's just a failed technology.
But there's a little deception going on here, because they're not pulling the actual money. They're transferring it away from the vaccine, which has become so odious in the mind of the public. And now they're going to use it to help figure out a way how to put the mRNA into food. All right. And that Canada is investing in mRNA into chemtrails. They're going to spray you with it. from the skies. So it ain't going away. Now, again, I don't know this as a fact. This was said by a medical expert on Seth Holhouse's program, Man in America. So go to his archive.
I don't doubt it. I mean, these people become
I don't
such
doubt it either.
unbelievable.
I was listening to this thing while I was in Berkeley, doing my workout, and I'm like, oh my God.
I mean, look at Bill Gates.
You look at
Despite
Bill Gates.
multiple
He's
failed,
meeting with Trump. He wants to be involved. So, I mean, these people have their hooks. I mean, I admire RFK, of course, Trump. I love Trump, but they're not totally, free of this. These people have power that is much bigger and is much deeper. I mean, talk about a deep state. So, anyways, that's not a pleasant thought.
no,
But
it seems a little fanciful. So,
hopefully. But there's nothing wrong with wondering about it. I'm not saying it's absolute fact here. But, and I'm not necessarily saying that mRNA research is all evil either. I just
it's really got a bad name.
I just don't like the mandatory aspect of it. There's no urgency to have it.
There was a very large percentage of Democrats that felt that kids should be taken away from their parents if they didn't get the vaccine.
Oh, I don't doubt that. I mean, I remember, back I think it was in the 80s, there was a movement to license parents.
Yeah.
I think it was in the state of Oregon, right? They were going to experiment.
Of course.
You had to pass a test in order to keep your children. In other words, do you agree with Marx or whatever the hell the questions were? You had to have a survey. So, yeah, I don't doubt that. I mean, taking away children, that's always been a leftist thing for any reason. The whole rotten child custody, I mean, Massachusetts, it's unbelievable what the state with the social service has done in terms of taking children out of homes. Now, I'm not saying it's always not warranted, but it's excessive. I mean, we're talking like showing up and grabbing children. And to bring the subject back to your article, because I did have a thought about this, because before I get into total trouble here, I don't want to go off on too much of a rabbit hole. From Bud Light to Cracker Barrel. This is all about the woke categories, how to, make everything fit certain theories. I mean, this is why they took the young Indian girl out of Land of Lakes butter. I mean, if you see the picture of the Land of Lakes logo now, it's the same nature scene. You see the same lake, you see the same hills, but there's no Indian girl.
Now, who was that supposedly offending?
No, I mean, it's just, or Aunt Jemima. Aunt Jemima, by the way, was a very successful Black businesswoman in the 19th century who marketed those pancakes and who made a lot of money and who is someone that should be admired and revered for that reason, especially being a Black woman at a time when, the country was white supremacist, let's face it. And they've taken her face off, I think, the Aunt Jemima box. I think Uncle Ben might still be there. I don't know. But
no, it's not Uncle Ben. It's Ben.
Oh, is that right? He's no longer.
It's like Uncle Tom.
Oh, I get it. Okay. And now that with the Cracker Barrel, they tried to take away, as they say, both the cracker and the barrel.
Well, I truly don't understand how you can have a corporation. They're going to hire bad CEOs from time to time, but they watch this woman vandalize the brand. Where's the board of directors? Where's anybody taking a look at this thing? And she still has a job. This thing cost them $700 million plus whatever it's going to cost to bring it back.
You mean the people boycotting?
Restaurants they actually redid to make it look like a car dealership or whatever the idea was.
I know they took out all of that charm that it had. Like it was supposed to be based on like a shack, an Appalachian shack in Tennessee, and
Yeah.
it with the big rocking chairs. It's a great place. I love Cracker Barrel. You go in there and you get those old fashioned gums
Yeah.
and candies. It was just like it was like a great American kind of cultural experience.
So what is the mentality that what you're going to do as CEO is vandalize your own brand?
I mean, did they know what was going on? Did anybody pay attention on that, on that board of directors? I mean, it's a fairly big company.
Evidently not. And I did make the comment, which maybe you didn't like. If you take a look at this Julie Fels-Messino and what was her name, Alyssa Herdenscheid,
Yeah.
they both are these, and I'm sorry, your audience could look it up, these epicene women. Okay. Just what is the deal with that?
What do you mean?
If someone like that came in for a job interview, who would hire that? They all have these fake resumes of being 3 years at no more than 4 at a series of companies, which is just long enough to establish residency there, so to speak, before what you screwed up catches up with you.
Well, of course, there are now laws in place. You can't look into someone's background too closely. You can't ask the former employer about anything. I mean, they might be able to go, say something indicating, but they can't really get into details about someone's employment records. I don't know if you know this. There's all these laws.
Well, right, but how do you take someone whose last job was in Taco Bell International and think that that translates into running a company like Cracker Barrel, which is a completely different concept?
Well, they're doing the same thing, and I was going to mention this also, that Boston Mayor Wu is doing, in that they are hiring people based on category, not based on merit. And in the case of Mayor Wu, there's already been 4 people in her office who have been indicted this year. These are not the best people, but they happen to be. One's a black woman, one's a former illegal alien, one's gay. They're all, in other words, she hires people based on category.
Okay, well, that's fine,
Nothing
Chuck.
to do with
What is the psychosis that someone would think that's a good idea?
It's look, and they're open about it. I mean, she's like, I'm going to hire more minorities, more immigrants, more this, more that. Biden was open about it, wasn't he? I'm going to have a black woman as vice president. I'm going to have a black woman on the Supreme Court. That's what I'm going to do. Had nothing to, there was no discussion about philosophy, no discussion about constitutional theory. It was just, this is what he was going to do. It was so cynical, but yet it's the mind that they are. And look what we got. I mean, it's the mind that they have. It's a freaking disaster.
Oh, by the way, this, what's her name? Federal Reserve Governor, Lisa.
Oh, yeah.
It turns out Chris Rufo looked into it, and she too plagiarized a lot of her academic stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Claudine Gay, he did some great work on that. With Claudine Gay, it was worse than plagiarism. I mean, not only did she copy whole cloth the scholarly work of other academics, whom, by the way, happen to be black, not that it matters, but she took those passages and she altered them. It was fraud. She took one of them and the point that the academic was making was that something didn't happen. Claudine Gay, in her research, she wanted to say it did happen. So she changed the word no to yes. In other words, not only did she steal the document and purloin the language, but she altered it. I mean, it's both plagiarism and fraud.
So why does she still have a job?
Because they'll never get rid of someone like that. It's like Ted Kennedy. He had that seat for life. They'll never get rid of, when someone pays those kinds of dues to the left, they have made their bones and they're in for life. We will never get rid of her. We'll probably never get rid of Michelle Wu either. She's in there for life, even though her challenger, Josh Kraft, who, by the way, is the son of Bob Kraft of
Right.
the New England Patriots, he's kind of stepping up. I think he might. Oh, it'd be really great if he gets a shot. He's like, look, they asked him, don't you hate Trump? Oh, the same thing in Boston. And he goes, look, I'm not going to get into what I think of Trump. I don't like Trump. However, I'm going to focus on Boston. I'm going to do what's best for Boston. And if Trump is doing something good for Boston, I'm on board because I care about the job I'm doing. I'll be elected mayor of the city of Boston. Not, it's like,
I have to ask you this though: who are the voters that would put in a Michelle Wu? What happened to all those hard ass Southie types? I can't imagine them voting for Michelle Wu.
she, I don't know, her opponent was weak. She actually is very slick. She's very personable. She's easy on the eyes. She's good on television. She just knew how to do it. And I think she fooled a lot of people. I think it's coming to roost now, though. She is as left wing as Mamdani. I mean,
Yeah,
she's is really a open Marxist, and it now turns out that she took a $300,000 contribution from a businessman who has direct links to the communist Chinese government.
yeah.
I think that the Globe isn't going to talk about it, but it's out there, and and it does matter. I mean, who knows? A miracle could happen. I mean, Josh Kraft is no slouch, and she's nervous. He's a liberal. I mean, he's a Democrat, but he's more of like a kind of a more conventional, old-fashioned, JFK Democrat, not a Ted Kennedy Democrat.
Yeah.
He's rational. I mean, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I only bring her up because, and by the way, Michelle Wu, just one more shot. Even the first day she became mayor, she implemented one of the most draconian laws regarding COVID. This is after the pandemic's over.
Yeah.
You had to show a passport to go into a restaurant or a store in Boston. Nobody paid any attention to it. It was too much even for Cambridge and Somerville. They didn't do this. And it kind of disappeared. Just people didn't do it.
Well, there were a lot of those that happened. There was a guy that owns a popular restaurant here in Thousand Oaks, been around for a long time. And there were all kinds of restrictions they were trying to put on this guy. At one time, he was the only restaurant within miles that was serving lunch. So he figured he's making this money. He's going to deal with it, whatever, right? And they completely backed off. He defied him. Said, no, we're serving lunch. Nothing you could do about it. And like you said, it just went away.
I noticed it even when I was in Berkeley last week. There's a coffee chain there called Phil's Coffee.
Yeah.
And the owner was like, he got in trouble because he didn't do the COVID protocols.
Right.
And he was fined and he was, people were walking out, but he said, tough, I'm not doing it. And then there were employees who were challenging him. He fired them all. I don't know how he got away with it in Berkeley, of all places, but he's doing good. I mean, he just expanded into Chicago. I mean, he's a pretty smart guy. The coffee isn't so great, but but I wanted to check it out because I read that information.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was the irony with Cracker Barrel. Their biggest problem was that they cheapened the food, and they should get back to what they used to have. And no one seemed to have worried about that. Changing the logo and the decor of the stores is more important. So I have to rest my case on that. This woman had worked for multiple food companies, and like, if you're in the food business, what's the most important thing? The food?
Yeah, you think instead of like ripping off the old Cracker Barrel, right? Anyway, but it's the backlash was severe, and they've backed down. So we're winning.
I hope so.
So, Mike, I'll see you on Thursday, hopefully.
So we'll have a twofer this week. Huh?
Twofer, you bet.
All right. Looking forward to it.
Me too. And take care, as I like to say. God bless America, and be well.
You too.
All right. Thanks a lot.